Hi everyone. In this tutorial we're going to go through Adobe Illustrator and bringing that 2D Make 2D file that you created in Rhino, bringing that into Illustrator, adjusting line weights and filling it with a live paint. So we're going to start by going to File and opening your Make 2D file that you made previously. So if you go to Open, you should go and find your file. Mine is called 3D Export. Go to Open. And since we're not worried about scale at this point, let's do Scale to Fit Artboard and go OK. So mine, it looks like my Illustrator is set to a different size than tabloid. So let's go ahead and make sure they're all in tabloid size. Go to, so I just clicked on Document Setup up here and clicked Edit Artboards. And so now it shows, it's highlighting this artboard for you. So your artboard in Illustrator is basically like your piece of paper. So it's the area that's going to print and be your kind of surface for drawing. So let's see, it looks like it's set to HD TV, which is a video file. So we want to make sure it's set for tabloid. So let's go into tabloid and excuse me, hit enter and go OK. I guess you can just click on this arrow to get out of it. So you'll see now that since my artboard was larger than tabloid when I brought it in, everything is slightly off of the board. So I want to go and scale this down to fit the board. So what I've done is I've just kind of dragged from the corner and selected all of the lines. You want to make sure everything is selected, and I'm just going to mouse over to the corner here and hit Shift to hold everything together and scale down from the corner. So while everything's still selected, I'm just going to move it. So I'm just dragging it while it's selected, and I'm going to scale it one more time and drag it and make sure everything's on there. So this looks like a pretty good size to me on the board. So I'm going to click out. You'll notice here that you can't see all the lines, and that's because we haven't adjusted the line weights, and they're just showing up based on how they were brought in from Rhino. So now we're going to go ahead and adjust these line weights. What you'll see over here is a layers tab, which is really important in Illustrator to keep all your layers separate so that you can organize line types, so line weights by layer, and any kind of objects. So however you want to divide your layers, it's just really helpful to keep organized. So you'll notice there are two right now, and these were kind of brought in automatically from Rhino because we hadn't named our layers. But if you had named your layers in Rhino, these would show up here. So what I'm going to do is click on this little dot here, and what that does is it automatically selects everything on that layer. So what you can see here is that everything on that layer is my profile line. So that's an outside line. And those are the ones that we want to make darker and highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and just change this name by double clicking to Profiles and click out. And I'm going to go ahead and click to select these ones to see what they are. And these are those hidden lines that I had exported. So these will be great as dashed lines behind because it shows what's hidden behind the object. So I'm going to go in and change the line weight of this, or the name of this, sorry, to hidden lines. Now we have hidden lines and profiles. So now let's go ahead and highlight our profiles. You'll see that the text and the profile curves came in on the same layer. So actually what I want to do is separate the text from the outlines here, because if you zoom in on this, you'll see that these lines are pretty close together. So if we tried to change the weight of them to something thicker, they would become illegible. So I want to make sure those are on a separate layer. So let's see. Actually, let's go ahead and select these and just give them a color so we can see them a little better. So now we have a color. We'll worry about the weight of them later. So now I'm going to go ahead and drag and select this text. And what you can do is hold down Shift to select the rest of the text, and it'll keep adding the text to your selection as long as you're holding Shift. So do this for all of the text. And try not to get any other lines in with it. So now I've selected all of the text, and what I want to do is put it on its own layer. So if you go down here, you can see Create New Layer. So I'm going to click it, and now I've created a new layer, which is layer 3. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this text. I'm going to enter, and so my selection, you can see, which is from the profile layer, is highlighted in red. So basically anything that's currently selected is represented by this red dot. So what I'm going to do is actually drag this red dot up to the green, and now everything that was on my profile layer that I had selected is now on the green layer. But everything else that was on the profile layer that was not selected is still on my profile layer. So now we have the text on its layer, the profiles, and the hidden lines all on their own layers, which is great. So it's really nice to make sure you're organized as you're updating your layers and changing the names of them as you go. So let's go ahead and change the weight of this profile line. So we want it to be nice and thick, so it's kind of like a diagram. So right now, you can see stroke is shown up here and also here in stroke under this tab. So stroke means line weight, or your line basically, and weight is kind of a subcategory of that. So your line weight is the thickness of the stroke. So right now it's 0.47. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 2 here and hit enter, and you can see that it's thickened up really nice. And I think that's probably pretty good for our line weight. And then once you go to, let's click on hidden lines here. So these are the lines that are behind your object that are hidden and you wouldn't see if you were looking at them. But we want to represent them because it makes your drawing look really nice, and sometimes you want to be able to kind of add that information of what's behind the object. So I've clicked on this dot and highlighted your everything that's on hidden lines layer. And now looking up here at stroke, it says the weight is 0.47. So let's go ahead and make this 0.5 just to make it an even number. And let's click this dashed line here. So what that does is it makes your line into a dash. I'm going to click this over here. So what this is just a different pattern for your dash. So what it does is it squares out the corners really nicely, which in architectural drawing is nice. And then we can go ahead and leave this dash gap at 4.3. Yours might come in automatically at 12. So you'll want to adjust this. And what this does is it just changes the spacing between your dash. So you can play with this, and sometimes if your drawing is larger, you'll want to adjust it to a different dash and gap. But for now, this works for us. Also, I'm going to reselect this, and I want to make it a gray color to make it a little bit lighter. And let's see, so one way you can do that is double-clicking on your stroke on this kind of outline color. And what that does is it brings up this color picker, and you can go ahead and drag this anywhere you want. I'm going to go ahead and just drag it vertically because that keeps it in the gray field and make it a little bit lighter of a gray. And click OK. So now you can see my dash lines are gray. So this is really nice. I'm going to go ahead and change this text line now. So I'm going to select all this, and you can see the weight is 0.47. So let's go ahead and just make that 0.5 as an even line. And we'll leave it for now. I think it looks fine. So now you have now you have these really nice diagrams of your objects that you've made. And now we're going to go through something called Live Paint, and we're going to add color to these objects. So one thing that I like to do when I'm coloring in objects using this Live Paint feature is selecting the profile lines. So I'm going to select everything that's on the profile line, and I'm going to copy and paste into a new layer. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. So I'm going to create a new layer by clicking this icon below. I'm going to drag it down to the bottom so that my colors will be behind all the lines that I have. And I'm going to name this Live Paint. This is a really nice way to keep your drawing clean and be able to edit your lines later. So I have my profile selected. I'm going to copy these lines by doing Control-C to copy. And then I'm going to click in my Live Paint layer and do Shift Control V, which is it's paste in place. So it pastes those same lines in the exact place where they were copied from. Okay, so you can see that these lines are still on your profiles layer, and we have them duplicated on your Live Paint layer. So I'm going to turn this off so you can see that. So I'm going to select these lines on Live Paint and change the stroke weight to 0. I'm going to make sure that it is set to no color here in stroke as well. So now you can see that this basically has no color, but this one still represents your profile line. So we're going to leave this profile line alone. What we're going to do is select this Live Paint group, and now what this does is it creates an outline for us that we're going to turn into a paintable field. So you're going to go up to Object and go to Live Paint and go Make. So now you have a group of these invisible lines that will be paintable, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and turn these profile lines on so you can see where those curves are. And make sure you're clicked into your Live Paint layer so you can color on that layer. So you see it here to your left, it says Live Paint Bucket. So I'm going to click on this icon. And now you can see, basically as I'm hovering over this, that each one of these closed curves is a color field, or a field that you can color, basically. So it's all regulated by the closed lines. So that's what creates these fields. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a color. Let's see. I'm going to pick in this color spectrum, or you can double click on this swatch here and do color picker. So let's see, let's make it, let's do this teal color, or seafoam green. Go OK. And now I'm going to make sure I still have this Live Paint on, and I'm going to just click in the areas where I want it to be colored like this. So I'm going to make it like it's twisting, do some different colors for different sides or faces of these objects. So let's do the front face. You can do this however you want. Now I'm going to go, let's do this color guide. So you can, this here, if you go to swatches, and there's some kind of different menus down here. You can go to Open Color Themes panel, go to Color Guide, and this gives you a range of colors that are all kind of like harmonious with each other, which is nice for making diagrams and things. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this darker green that's in the same field and paint some more different areas here. Let's do this section cut, some of these sides, like this. And I'll pick a different color for these. Let's do kind of beige. Oops. Double click to get that color. This one selects as a whole figure because there's only one closed curve here. Select some of these other sides here. And as I hover over this, you can see that this curve is not closed. So there's a couple things I'm going to do here. So I want to make it closed so I can color it. Another thing, as I zoom in here, you can see that the corners are turning out sharp, which is not what we want because it looks kind of weird with the gap here. So I'm going to go into my profiles and unlock it and select this. And the way to fix this, I'm going to click into here. The way to fix this is to go to here. So you have your stroke, and what you want to do is put a round cap on the end. And what that does is it rounds out the end of every segment, whereas before it was using this other cap that has a shortened end. So this round cap really cleans things up. So I'm going to leave it like that. But now what I was mentioning, I'm going to lock Live Paint, and I'm going to edit these lines so that I can close this curve. And how I'm going to do that is to draw it with the pen tool. So I'm going to zoom in here really tight and try to get a curved angle to fill this out. Ideally this would come through from the Rhino Make 2D, but I think this was something where our tolerance was too high, so it didn't catch all the lines that we needed. So I'm just going to quickly change it. So if I select this, I'm just going to click, and what it does is it gives me this dashed line, which means that it's going to start my new line at that end point. So I clicked on it, and it joined it with this segment below. I'm going to keep turning the corner and connect it with this line here. So it says anchor there, and I'm going to click it, and it's telling me that these paths are going to be joined. So I'm going to go OK and say that's OK, and hit enter and click out of this. So the line is a little jagged, so one thing I'm going to do to smooth it out is go to up here. You can click on this, and there's a smooth tool. So this, I think under yours it might show up as this icon because that's usually on top, but you can move down to this smooth tool. I'm going to click on that, and what this does is if you kind of draw it over the top of your curve, it smooths out the corners. And usually I wouldn't do this, but since this is just a little diagram, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And it made a nice little curve for us. I'm going to go OK. So now I'm going to copy this curve in. I'm going to go, I'm going to go Control C to copy and unlock my Live Paint, get into my Live Paint layer. And then I'm going to do Edit, Paste in Place, or the Shift Control V shortcut. And I'm going to copy that line over to my Live Paint layer. I'm going to get rid of the weight, so I'm going to make the stroke weight 0. So now it matches the other Live Paint layer that has no weight to it. And I'm going to lock my profile. So now what you can do is select all of your Live Paint layer, now with your new curve added in. And I'm going to go back up to Object, Live Paint, and now you can use the field Merge, which what it does is that will add that line into your Live Paint layer. So I click Merge, and now that line is part of my Live Paint. So I'm going to go back in here and get my paint bucket, and I want it to be the same color as this end color. So I'm going to use this eyedropper tool here. It's called eyedropper. Click it, and what it does is if you click here, it selects the color that's matching. I'm going to go back into my Live Paint bucket and drop it here. So now we have this full figure, and it's been colored, and all of my drawings are colored.